He'd been planning this for 8 years. The blueprint lived in a locked room in his mind, behind the cultivation systems and the cure ingredients and the forge economics. A single door marked with a name. Vane. Behind it, every detail of the Lord's life that divine sage could provide. His schedule, his household, his habits, his weaknesses. He drank red wine every evening, a specific vintage from his vineyard, a Sorrenia import, dark and sweet, stored in a private cellar that only his steward had access to. He took medicine for joint pain, a tincture of willow bark and moon petal prepared by the town herbalist, delivered weekly. He hosted dinner parties for local nobility every other month. The next one was in 11 days. 8 years of filing, 8 years of waiting. And now, between the first ingredient and the second, there was a window, a gap in the timeline where he could act without delaying the cure. He told Garrick he was taking a rest day. His ribs were still healing. The dwarf wouldn't question it. Then he sat down in the back room of the forge, closed his eyes, and opened the door marked Vane. A formulation exists that meets all requirements. It is an alchemical compound derived from 3 ingredients: nightbloom root, deep-water kelp extract, and crushed serpentstone. The compound attacks the mana channels connecting the brain to the spinal cord, causing progressive neural degradation. The effect begins within 48 hours of ingestion and reaches full incapacitation over 6 to 8 weeks. Cognitive function is preserved. The subject remains fully aware. There is no cure in the current era. The compound leaves no trace in the bloodstream and breaks down within 72 hours, making retrospective detection impossible with existing medical knowledge. What are the ingredients, and how do I prepare them? Nightbloom root grows in shaded forest areas. Available locally. The root must be dried. Serpentstone, a rare mineral found in cave systems. Small deposits exist in the Thorn Gate dungeon's upper levels. The stone must be crushed to a fine dust and dissolved in the kelp syrup before combining with the nightbloom powder. Preparation. Combine the 3 components in equal measure. Heat to exactly 180 degrees for 15 minutes, stirring continuously. The resulting liquid is odorless, tasteless, and dissolves completely in wine or water. A single dose requires approximately 5 milliliters. He memorized the recipe. Every measurement, every temperature, every step. He didn't write it down. This wasn't the kind of knowledge that lived on paper. The most reliable vector is Lord Vane's evening wine. The compound dissolves without residue and is undetectable in red wine. Access to the wine requires infiltration of the Vane household or interception of the wine supply. Alternative vectors. His joint medicine, the willow bark tincture, his morning tea, or any food prepared in the Vane kitchen. All are viable if access can be obtained. The most practical approach for your capabilities, the dinner party in 11 days. Vane hosts local gentry, 20 to 30 guests, catered kitchen, temporary serving staff hired from Thorngate. A 13-year-old from a prominent local smithy could plausibly be present as a vendor or delivery person. Show me the Vane household layout. Service entrance, kitchen, wine storage. The Vane Manor is a 2-story stone building with a central hall, 4 wings, and a basement cellar. The service entrance is on the east side, leading to the kitchen. The wine cellar is accessed through a stairway in the kitchen pantry. During events, temporary staff use the service entrance and have access to the kitchen and dining setup areas. The wine is retrieved from the cellar by the steward or senior servants. During the dinner party, the kitchen will be staffed by 3 permanent cooks and 4-6 temporary helpers. Deliveries are received at the service entrance throughout the day. A smith delivering goods would not be unusual. He could do this. He could do this. And the thought sat in his chest like a stone, cold and heavy and absolutely certain. He gathered the ingredients in secret. Night bloom root from the forest edge. He knew where it grew, had walked past it 100 times on herb hunting trips. Deep-water kelp from Lake Thorngate. He swam to the bottom at night, the verdant root sustaining him with ambient manna while his lungs burned, harvesting the dark, slick kelp from the cold depths. Serpent stone from the dungeon's upper levels. He went in through a side entrance he'd mapped months ago, avoided the level 5 at 10 creatures in the upper corridors, and chipped a palm-sized piece of the gray-green mineral from a cave wall. He brewed the potion in the forge after hours when Garrick was asleep. The process was simple, precise. The result was a small vial of clear liquid, odorless, tasteless, completely indistinguishable from water, 5 milliliters, enough to destroy a man's body while leaving his mind intact. He held the vial up to the forge light. The liquid was perfectly transparent. It could have been anything: water, medicine, holy water from the church. This is justice, he told himself. The thought felt hollow. He put the vial in his pocket and cleaned the equipment. The slave broker was in her office, as she always was on market days, surrounded by ledgers and the quiet efficiency of her trade. She looked up when he entered, and something in her expression shifted. She'd sold him Garrick a year ago, and the dwarf's transformation from broken slave to master smith had been the talk of the craft district. Dalla took quiet pride in that. "William, what brings you to my office?" "I need a favor. Information, not merchandise." "I know." He set 5 silver on her desk. "Lord Vane's household, who handles event staffing." Dalla's eyes flickered. She was too professional to ask why a 13-year-old wanted to know about a noble's staffing arrangements, but she noted it, filed it. Another data point in her mental portrait of the strange boy who'd bought a dwarf and built a forge. "Martha Grellin," Dalla said, pocketing the silver, "runs a hiring service out of the craft district. She provides temporary staff for all the minor noble households in the area. Vane uses her exclusively for dinner events. She takes anyone who can carry a tray and keep their mouth shut. Why? You looking to serve drinks?" "I'm looking to deliver a blade. Lord Vane's steward commissioned cutlery for the event. I need to get it into the kitchen during setup." It was a plausible cover. The Vane household had placed an order with Iron Hollow Forge 2 weeks ago. 6 place settings of high-quality cutlery, a rush job for the dinner party. William had personally handled the order. The delivery was scheduled for the morning of the event. "The kitchen will be chaos. I want to know the layout, who's in charge, where the service areas are, how the evening flows. If I know the rhythm, I can make the delivery without getting in the way." Dalla studied him for a long moment. Then she shrugged. "Martha Grellin's office is on Tanner Street, 3rd building on the left. Tell her Dalla sent you. She'll give you the basics." "Thank you." "It is." He left before she could ask what it was. 6 place settings, wrapped in oiled cloth, each piece hand-forged by Garrick with the precision that had made Iron Hollow Forge the most sought-after smithy in Thorngate. The steward, a thin man named Peller, who smelled like lavender and condescension, accepted the delivery at the service entrance, counted the pieces, and signed the receipt. "Leave through the service gate," Peller said, already turning away. "Don't wander." "Of course." The kitchen was exactly as Divine Sage had described. A large hot room with 3 permanent cooks barking orders at a rotating cast of temporary helpers. The smells were overwhelming. Roasting meat, baking bread, reductions simmering on iron stoves. The noise was a wall of clattering pots and shouted instructions. In the chaos, one more person moved through the space without drawing attention. William had spent the past 2 days learning the household's rhythm from Martha Grellin. He knew that the wine was retrieved from the cellar at 4 p.m. by the steward, who personally decanted each bottle for the evening service. He knew that the wine was stored in the cellar's east rack, 3rd shelf, and that, Lord, it was cool down here. dark. Rows of bottles lined the walls, organized by vintage and region. The air smelled of cork, dust, and the faint tang of aged grapes. His bare feet were silent on the stone floor. The verdant route extended his senses. He could feel the footsteps of everyone in the household above him. Cooks in the kitchen, servants in the hall, the steward in the dining room 2 floors up. The locked cabinet was in the corner. Iron-bound wood, brass lock. Not designed to keep out a determined intruder. Designed to keep servants from stealing the good wine. William pulled a lockpick from his pocket. He'd practiced on every lock in the forge for... Inside, 6 bottles of Serenia Red. He pulled one, uncorked it with the quiet hiss of a practiced sommelier, and added 5 milliliters of clear liquid from the vial in his pocket. The compound dissolved instantly. No residue, no color change, no smell. He recorked the bottle, placed it back in the cabinet, locked the cabinet, and was back in the kitchen 45 seconds after he'd left it. He was halfway back to the forge before his hands stopped shaking. Not from fear, not from guilt, not from the moral weight of what he'd just done. He sat on a bench outside the forge, waiting for his heartbeat to normalize, and thought about what he'd done. Lord Aldric Vane would drink the wine tonight. The compound would enter his system and begin its work. Within 48 hours, he'd feel the first symptoms, tingling in his extremities, slight difficulty with fine motor tasks. He'd attribute it to overwork or age. Within 2 weeks, the tingling would become numbness. He'd struggle to hold a pen. His gait would become unsteady. Within 6 weeks, he wouldn't be able to walk. His healers would examine him. They'd find nothing. No poison in his blood, no disease in his humors, no curse that their divination magic could detect. The compound, like a slave. William had thought about this. For 8 years, he'd thought about it. He'd considered killing the Lord. Quick, clean, final. He'd rejected it. Death was release. Death was escape. Lord Vane didn't deserve escape. He deserved to live with what he'd done. To sit in his fine chair in his fine manner, surrounded by his fine things, and understand for the rest of his life what it felt like to have no control over your own body. To have something taken from you by someone with more power, who didn't think of you as a person. That was justice. Not the satisfying kind, not the kind that made you feel warm and righteous. Now he's property. His own body is property. The disease he gave her, slow, progressive, fatal, I've given him a version of it. Slower, not fatal, but just as absolute. He sat on the bench and watched the sun sink toward the rooftops of Thorngate and felt nothing that he could name. Not satisfaction, not regret, not righteousness, just stillness. The same stillness he felt when a forge weld held perfectly, when a blade's edge tested true, when a calculation produced the expected result. Problem identified. Solution designed. Solution executed. Outcome achieved. It should have felt like something. Anger, maybe, or grief, or the savage pleasure of a debt repaid. Instead, it felt like the end of a procedure. The moment when you set down the tool and step back from the workbench and evaluate the finished product with clinical detachment. That frightened him. Not the act itself. He'd weighed that against every alternative and chosen this one with open eyes. What frightened him was how easy it was, how clean, how natural it felt to identify a threat, design a response, and implement it without emotional interference. As if the part of him that should have struggled with this decision had been filed away alongside everything else he'd compartmentalized. He didn't have an answer. He filed the question next to the thorn beast's death, next to the slave market, next to the cat boy's eyes, in the growing archive of things he'd done that he couldn't quite reconcile with the person he thought he was. Then he went inside, cleaned up, and ate dinner with Garrick. William looked up. "How do you mean?" "You've got that look. The one you get after you've done something you're not going to talk about. I've got a lot of those looks." Something that needed doing. Needed by who? By me. Is this about the fox woman? William didn't answer. The silence was its own answer. Whatever it is, Garrick said slowly, don't let it eat you. I've seen men destroy themselves over debts they couldn't collect. The debt either gets paid or it doesn't. Either way, you've still got to live with yourself. Can you? The dwarf's voice was quieter now. Because the boy who walked into my forge a year ago wouldn't have said that with that tone of voice. What tone? The one that says you're not sure if you believe it? The debt is paid, William said, or it will be in a few weeks, and then I never think about it again. That's not how debts work, boy. It's how this one works. 6 weeks later, the news reached Thorngate. Lord Aldric Vane had fallen ill, a mysterious ailment, no cause identified, no cure effective. The Lord was bedridden, unable to move his legs, his arms growing weaker by the day. His wife had taken over the management of the barony. His sons had been summoned from the academy. The healers were baffled. That evening, he visited the church. Elara was in the orphanage kitchen, as always. She was sitting this time, a small concession to the fatigue that never lifted. Her hands were wrapped around a cup of tea, and she was staring at the wall with the unfocused gaze of someone who was too tired to pretend anymore. "Did you hear?" she said when he sat down across from her. "Lord Vane, the noble who visited when you were small, he's taken sick. They say he can't move, can't walk, can't use his hands." She shook her head slowly. "Strange, isn't it? A man with everything, brought low by something no one can name." "Strange," William agreed. "I shouldn't feel anything about it. He was just a lord who visited once. I barely remember him." Her ears twitched, the tell that said she was lying, though she didn't know he could read it. "But it's strange, isn't it? How things change." She looked at him. The amber eyes were tired, yellowed at the edges, the whites beginning to show the faint discoloration that marked advancing mana channel degradation. She didn't know what was wrong with her. She knew something was wrong. You couldn't cough blood into rags for 2 years without knowing, but she hadn't asked, hadn't sought a diagnosis, hadn't fought it. Maybe that was the slave in her, the part that had learned over decades that fighting was for free people, slaves endured. "I'm fighting for you," he thought, "whether you ask me to or not."